I saw it with my own eyes. You can't convince me otherwise. It was real. I know it happened. Memphis was within 6 points of the Oklahoma City Thunder on Tuesday night, but close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades, and the Thunder pulled away late. We're going to talk about Game 2, Tomas Isalo, and so much more on this edition of Locked On Grizzlies. Let's lock in.
You are Locked On Grizzlies, your daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It's a Wednesday edition of Locked On Grizzlies. I am your host, Joe Mullinax, flying solo on this episode to Michael Cole, wrapping up his work there in Oklahoma City, heading back to Memphis. I'm not so sure he's going to have to go back to Oklahoma City. I'd love to be wrong. I'd love for there to be a Game 5 in this series, but I just don't see a path to that. We'll see if we can get there, you and I, over these next 30 minutes here on Locked On Grizzlies together. Let's start that journey, shall we? Today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts as proud members of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team each and every single day. Like, comment, rate, review, subscribe. Wherever you get podcasts, we are on Apple, we are on Spotify, we are on YouTube, we're on Google, Amazon. Literally anywhere you get a podcast, you can get Locked On Grizzlies. Make us a part of your NBA and Memphis Grizzlies content consumption each and every time that an episode drops. Also, make sure you're checking out the newsletter, right? Exciting times over with our newsletter. We're having a blast over there. Make sure you're checking us out with the newsletter. Lots of good stuff each and every time a newsletter drops, not just from me, but also from the NBA at large, perspectives there, fantasy basketball advice, and so much more. Make sure you're checking out Locked On daily and subscribing to the Locked On Grizzlies newsletter. Okay, fine. Maybe it was 8 points, but I know it was a single-digit game in that third quarter. I seen it with my own eyes. I saw the Memphis Grizzlies win a frame. They won the third quarter 27-20 against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Hang the banner. Out of 8 potential quarters of play through 2 games, Memphis has won one of those quarters, that being the third quarter in this game against the Thunder. But of course, it was not enough. Memphis not able to overcome an abysmal start to the contest. OKC was up 32-17 at the end of the first, and Memphis was never really able to catch back up. The Thunder were up 18 at the half. They win this game by 19. So the Grizzlies play roughly even with the Thunder in the second half. Obviously not good enough, and Memphis loses. There are some things to be happy if you want to choose joy on this Wednesday edition of Locked On Grizzlies. You saw a better showing from Jaren Jackson Jr. offensively, especially in the second half. Still was committing some bad fouls, still was struggling with the way that Alex Caruso and other Thunder players were defending him. The fact that the 6'11", 245-pound Jaren Jackson Jr. struggles with Alex Caruso is something that I'm going to have to process in the offseason talking with Michael Cole, because as a former middle school and high school big man, when you're bigger than somebody by that much, you have about 50 pounds and 6 inches on Alex Caruso, probably shouldn't be getting stonewalled or being held in check. Now, in fairness to Jaren, in the third quarter, he didn't. He had a really strong showing. One of the reasons Memphis won the third quarter was Jaren Jackson's offensive push. But the flaw with Jaren is that he gets into the groove where he knows he can't be defended. The Thunder are a talented team that is also well coached. They know they're struggling with Jaren, so they start collapsing on him in the paint. And as you have heard me talk about all year long, what does Jaren Jackson Jr. do? Not pass the ball enough out of those double teams. Too many turnovers, too many poor passes, too many missed shots off of those looks. Although Jaren didn't have a turnover in the game, it disrupted Memphis's rhythm enough that he was not able to maintain that offensive structure the way that Memphis needed him to. But again, the way that he played in game 1, comparing it to game 2, 26 points on 18 shots, you certainly can't point the finger of blame at Jaren Jackson Jr. in this one. John Morant 5 turnovers to 6 assists. That's not good enough. 10 of 25 shooting. That's not good enough. Not his most efficient outing, 23 points on 25 shots. But to Ja's credit, a -7 in the game. He played a team-high 40 minutes in this contest. 40 minutes in the game for Ja Morant. So let's do the math on that one real quick, dear listener, dear viewer. That means that in the 8 minutes that Ja Morant was not on the court in this game, Memphis was a -12. -12 in 8 minutes of play that Ja wasn't on the floor. And we'll talk more about those 8 minutes that Ja wasn't on the floor later on the show when we talk about Tumas Isolo. Desmond Bane, 19 points, 12 rebounds, so a double-double for Bane. He got more rebounds than Zach Edey in this one, not one of Edey's best efforts. But Dez played his tail off, and that is one of the things that I do think that we need to give some credit for, right? This isn't public school sports. We're not playing rec ball. The moral victories, especially in the postseason, are gone. They're done with. And I also think that it's fair if you are one of those fans that is frustrated watching the Thunder doing what the Grizzlies were doing 2 or 3 years ago and just being a hell of a lot better at it than Memphis even was then, and certainly than they are now. I think if you're frustrated with Zach Kleiman, I think if you're in a rut with the current state of play for the Grizzlies, I think that's fair. I'm not going to tell you how to feel or if you're wrong for feeling that particular way. It is hard looking at this Thunder team, seeing them in all their splendor and glory, and trying to see a path for Memphis to get to that level with this current iteration of the roster. You buy into Ja Morant as your superstar and you build depth around him. You're going to have to move on from Jaren and Dez to get that done. Do you think that Ja, Dez, and Jaren deserve a better supporting cast and a different coach, and you see how that looks after a year or two? I think that's where I land in this moment, and we're going to have a whole offseason to be able to break all those thoughts down. But that limits you in terms of how you're going to make this team better in the here and now. You have the mid-level exception. You have some first-round picks beyond this year since it's officially been sent to Washington in this draft. You have some draft picks down the road if you want to go in with this group. Can you build a better supporting cast around them with the resources in place? You can add a couple of pieces, but is that going to be enough to get you to the Oklahoma City Thunder? Is that going to get you to the mountaintop? I think that we owe this core, well, we don't owe them anything, but I think that this core deserves a year, another one, to see if a different coach's voice. Maybe it's Tumas Isolo, maybe it's not. But a full offseason and a full preseason with a different voice of a coach. A different supporting cast. The Grizzlies are depending on Marvin Bagley a little too much right now, right? You have to remember Jalen Wells is out. We have to remember Brandon Clark is out. This is a series where both of those guys would help a good bit. Would it still be 2-0 Oklahoma City? Probably. Does Memphis lose by a combined 75 points over those two games? It's hard for me to believe that. If you have Brandon Clark, if you have Jalen Wells, because those are 2+ defenders that could help you slow down the Thunder in key spots. My biggest takeaway from 2 games in Oklahoma City is just how far Memphis has to go to get to that level. The Grizzlies were the 2 seed just a couple of months ago. But you watch Jalen Williams play. You watch Shai Gilgeous-Alexander play. You watch Chet Holmgren. You watch the depth. You watch the investment in veteran players like Isaiah Hartenstein. You see Alex Caruso coming off the bench and being able to stymie, completely nullify for stretches of time your borderline all NBA big. The Thunder are for real. And if you have a bigger wing that can create offense for themselves, that's how you stop the Thunder, or how you at least compete with them. And that's the one thing that Memphis doesn't really have right now. Can they get that? Maybe. Do you have faith in Zach Kleiman after what's transpired over the last couple of years to get that job done? You might be a bigger believer than I at this stage. But there are still at least 2 more games to go against the Thunder. Plenty of time to talk about off-season content. But watching OKC pull away at the end of that second half, even after Memphis fought back, even after they competed, even after they started playing better basketball, especially Jaren, to see it be inevitable, Thanos style, that the Thunder were going to do what they did, it's hard to be excited as the series comes home. I understand that. If you're not super stoked for games 3 and 4, I get it. I think that as fans, you muster the energy and you support the team as best you can. But that was a pretty deflating 2 games. The first one being deflating for a different reason than the second one. The second one, Memphis played better, and their better still was not anywhere close to good enough. When we come back here on Locked On Grizzlies, we are going to talk about Tuomas Isalo, some good things that he did in Oklahoma City, and some things that I wasn't as big of a fan of. Stick around. Today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by Game Time. There's nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. If you've never been, you should definitely go on Thursday there in Memphis, Tennessee, and experience it for yourself. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels huge. It is electric in the arena, and with Game Time, you can be part of it without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting. Game Time makes it fast and easy to get playoff tickets, even when demand is sky high. Prices on the app actually go down as tip-off gets closer, and last-minute deals can save you up to 60%. You can save 60% going to the game on Thursday, or maybe you want to go to a concert, a comedy show, a theater production, something else like that. You could do that with Game Time. Plus, the all-in pricing means there are no surprise fees at checkout. What you see is what you pay. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. So Tuomas Isalo deserves some credit. I've been hard on Tuomas Isalo. I've been trying to find his replacement. I've been trying to think of people that should have the job for the Memphis Grizzlies as head basketball coach that aren't Tuomas Isalo. But in that third quarter, you saw adjustments being made in real time, trying to help get Jaren going. Chris Harrington of the Daily Memphian wrote about it. DeMichael and I have talked about it here on Locked On Grizzlies. Where does Jaren thrive? It's not rebounding. We're not going down that well again. It's not as a rebounder. That is not the strength of Jaren Jackson Jr.'s game. He's strong as an offensive player when he is creating an isolation on the perimeter, around the three-point line where he's able to get ahead of steam, create off the dribble, try to get to his left hand, maybe does a quick pump fake to that side, comes up with the right. He is most successful in those spots, or as a pick and pop player on a three-point shot. That's where he is best. And Isalo made it a priority in that third quarter to go to Jaren and give him those chances in the spots where he was most comfortable to score. And what happened? Jaren Jackson Jr. met that moment in a series where he has been questioned here, there, and everywhere. In the third quarter, he was the guy that Memphis needs if this is going to be a competitive series. Again, you can't take it away from the Memphis Grizzlies that they won the third quarter. Not good enough. The Thunder are much better than Memphis as of this moment, and likely it will stay that way throughout the entirety of the series. But you cannot take away that it was 27-20 Memphis at the end of the third quarter within that 12-minute span of playing time. And Jaren was a major reason why. So Isalo identifying the need to get him going, finding his confidence, giving him rhythm. That is part of coaching. That is a major piece of it, trying to get your best players in the positions that they are most comfortable in so that they can get into a rhythm and help you compete. That's part of coaching, especially when you have a Thunder defense that, as the game went on, obviously understood that they didn't have as much for Jaren as they would have liked. Caruso is able to handle his own, but Caruso also, again, as I mentioned earlier, gives up 6 inches and 50-plus pounds to Jaren. Jaren's going to, when Jaren wants to be physical, when Jaren wants to put his head down and go get it, he is as good as anybody in the NBA at doing it, especially in isolation. But the Thunder started collapsing on Jaren, and Jaren has to be better as a passer out of those movements. You've heard me talk about that countless times here on Locked On Grizzlies. And that is something that, beyond the rebounding, if you're going to be a perimeter-based big, if you're going to be somebody that creates for themselves off the dribble in isolation, you have to be able to pass out of those looks. When you're as dominant as Jaren has a tendency to be, and you're ball dominant in those cases, A smart defensive team with the length and the athleticism of Oklahoma City, they can collapse and still get back out and retreat on shooters and at least give a soft contest. You have to see that movement faster. You have to make that pass so that an additional pass can be made to make up for the space that the Thunder can cover and get a cleaner look. Jaren's not seeing that fast enough, but that's been a problem for Jaren his entire career. That's not Isolo's fault. The biggest thing that I have an issue with when it comes to Tuamasi Isolo is the inability to start the game in a more effective manner. Memphis missed a lot of open shots, but the Grizzlies also were settling for jumpers. There wasn't nearly enough attempts at the rim in that first quarter. Why did it take a whole half of basketball for that adjustment to be made? How do you not watch the film from game one, seeing Jaren struggle because he's too close to the basket on the low block, and that is not his comfort point? How do you not start with what Memphis did in the third quarter? That's a fair point to make. And I think another fair point to make is that while John Morant did play 40 minutes, he did lead the team in playing time in this game. You know what John Morant didn't do? He didn't start the fourth quarter. And I want to remind you, the Memphis Grizzlies won the third quarter. At the end of the third quarter, the score was 79-90. It was an 11-point game. And obviously the Thunder are one of the best teams potentially in NBA history. They're the best team in the Western Conference. Was it likely that the Grizzlies were going to catch OKC? No, it wasn't likely. But was it possible that Memphis could continue the good vibes and the good energy with Ja on the court and be around down 8 or 7 heading into the final 5 minutes? You're almost in a clutch situation. How valuable would that have been? Even if the Grizzlies lose, not trying to pretend that Memphis would knock off the Thunder and have one of the greatest upsets in NBA playoff history. Just to be competitive, just to be in a playoff game on the road with a younger roster that doesn't have playoff experience. To be in that position to go and compete, those battle scars are so valuable. And they missed that opportunity because there's John Morant sitting on the bench to start the fourth quarter. And what happens? OKC made 3. OKC made 2. OKC made dunk. Within the first 90 seconds of the fourth quarter, it was an 8-0 run. The Thunder were back up 18. How do you not see that John Morant has to be on the court? He re-entered after that, but that was a mistake. You start the fourth, continuing the energy and the momentum. And then if Ja needs a breather, understandably so, he played 40 minutes. Hasn't happened much around here. If he needs a break, you give it to him around that 9-minute mark. It's a couple of minutes. And you get him back in the game. But it killed the momentum that Memphis had. It killed it. And I think that Isolo deserves to be held accountable for those kinds of decisions. You have to, where the minutes are distributed matters. Where the minutes are distributed matters. Jaren Jackson Jr. only playing 35 minutes. He had 3 fouls in the second quarter. Go figure it out. Let him play. Giving 10 minutes or 11 minutes to Marvin Bagley. Bagley had 1 rebound in 11 minutes. Pull that plug faster. Faster. Make the choice to move on quicker because it wasn't working. So Isolo deserves some grace. We're literally talking about what? His 11th NBA game? 12th NBA game? If you're counting the play-in, I guess 13th NBA game? You get the picture. This is somebody who's still in their infancy of their NBA career. But if we're talking about Tuamasi Isolo as being the favorite in the clubhouse for the Memphis Grizzlies head coaching job, without potentially getting a Sam Cassell or a Jeff Van Gundy or a Terry Stotts or Mike Brown or Mike Malone, there's names. If we're going to forego any opportunity at those guys and we're going to go all in with Isolo, you tell me in the comments, you hit me up on X at Joe Mullinax. What would the record be of the Grizzlies if they still had Taylor Jenkins? Do you really think that Isolo has them in a much better spot than Jenkins would have had them? Not advocating for keeping Jenkins, because as I said at the time, he was fired. If Memphis had waited till the end of the postseason, I wouldn't have blinked an eye. But you made the choice to move on from him, and Zach Kleiman went out on television and in the media and said this is about urgency. Aside from the third quarter against the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Dallas Mavericks play-in game, I haven't seen a ton of urgency. Have you? Especially against teams that are any good. Hit me up on X. Let me know in the comments. When we come back here on Locked On Grizzlies, we're going to end on a positive note, darn it. We're going to try to find joy at the end of this episode of Locked On Grizzlies. The series is coming back to Memphis. Are there any reasons for Grizzlies hope? Stick around. Let's talk about it. Today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by Amazon Fire TV. Did you know that your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe, or sign into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to go. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and Avowed. As easily as you stream your favorite shows, you can game. It is that simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. You can play high-quality Xbox games at a fraction of the cost of a console. If you already have a console, a Fire Stick 4K device is more affordable and easy to travel with, allowing you to take your or your kids' favorite games wherever you plug in. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K, 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max, 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube, 3rd Gen. So I'm tired of being negative. I don't know about you. If there's only 2 more games left in this Memphis Grizzlies season, I want to do my best to be as positive as I can be. Not just positive that I'm fairly confident there's only 4 games left, right? If the Grizzlies are going to make this a series, at least one that's a gentleman's sweep, right? OKC in 5. That was my official prediction. It's game 3 that they have to snag. Because if Memphis doesn't get game 3 and they're down 3-0 going into game 4, FedExFourm is going to be a much less intimidating place in game 4. You could argue it's going to be a less intimidating place in game 3 if you go off of online sentiment. Now, thank goodness for all of us that the internet is not the real world, right? Whew. We're dodging bullets there, that the internet and the real world are 2 very different things. But the reality of the situation is that if they lose game 3, it's going to be hard to sell people to go to watch the burial of the Memphis Grizzlies 2024-2025 edition on Saturday night. So Thursday is the night to me. Thursday is the one where if they're going to send this back to OKC, if DeMichael's going to have to get back on a plane and head back out to Oklahoma, it's got to be game 3. I think they're going to be up for it. And how I can say that is I saw them compete in this game. Now, are the Thunder better at it? Absolutely. Candace Parker, who I thought did a really good job on the TNT broadcast on Tuesday night, kept talking about how effort and energy, it's hard to quantify it, but you see it. And the Thunder are excellent at it. I think it's easy to show that effort and energy when you're bigger and stronger and faster than your opponent. But her point still is fair. Alex Caruso isn't bigger, faster, and stronger than Jaren Jackson Jr., but he still was able to compete and hang with, and at times, more often than not, succeed defending Jaren Jackson Jr. because of exactly what Parker was talking about, effort and energy. The Grizzlies should have more of that at home, in their beds, getting good rest, in their building, with their fans. It's not like the Thunder have a fan base like the Lakers or the Warriors. We're going to be battling a bunch of different folks in different colored uniforms. There'll be some OKC fans there, I'm sure. But this is a chance for Memphis to build off of the success, especially of that third quarter. What worked? You found ways to get Jaren going. That's good. You found ways to get open looks. They didn't always fall, but there were open shots in that third quarter. That's good. You found some defensive viability. Scottie Pippen Jr. is having some success, not a ton. SGA had a much better game in game 2 than he did in game 1. But that doesn't change the fact that SGA was 10 of 29 from the field. Let's not pretend like SGA, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, is having an efficient scoring series, because he's not. This is one of the most inefficient 2-game stretches of his recent career. Scottie Pippen Jr. deserves credit for that. If the Grizzlies can keep that energy going, if Tuomas Isalo can adjust and give Pippen Jr. some help and tweak his rotation so that Joe Morant isn't sitting out the start of fourth quarters anymore, there's room for Memphis to, again, I'm not even saying win, because that feels like too tall of an ask given the daunting task ahead of them. But a 5-point game with 5 minutes left, a couple of stops, a couple of made buckets, you have the lead. Is that really that far-fetched if Memphis does what they did in the third quarter? I'd argue it's not. But they have to extend that. They can't have the turnovers that they had, because the Thunder are going to be able to make you pay. That is a space where the Grizzlies struggled all season long, and that is a space where the Thunder thrived. The Thunder beat Memphis 21-3 in fast break points. The Grizzlies had 15 turnovers, and they gave up 25 points off of those turnovers. The Thunder had 7 turnovers and gave up 6 points off of those turnovers. 25 minus 6 is 19. How much did the Thunder win by again? Obviously, it's a little bit simpler, or not quite as simple as that. But the turnover issue is a major one for Memphis. It has been all season. Can they clean that up at home? The comfort level. Can they find their role players and get them going? Because goodness gracious, the once vaunted Grizzlies bench has just completely collapsed. Santi Aldama had 10 points, 4 of 11 shooting. Not good enough. Luke Kennard, 2 of 4. Then you have John Conchar and Marvin Bagley getting a lot of cardio out there. Conchar had 2 rebounds, 1 assist. Only took 1 shot in 10 minutes of play. That's good enough? It's not. Marvin Bagley took 1 shot, and it was a very ill-advised trying to look like Jaren Jackson Jr. drive from the perimeter. That's not Marvin Bagley's game. You need more from your bench. But role players historically play better at home than they do on the road. Can you get a 15, 16 piece, 10, 11 piece game from Santi, Luke, some combination of those guys? I think you can. I think it's possible. And again, I'm not asking for a win. I'm asking for competitive clutch time minutes. I'm asking for Zach Edey to be on the floor with the game on the line in the playoffs, to feel that energy, to feel that intensity, to have the opportunity in a make or break moment to either succeed and feel the rush of victory, or to fail, which is the more likely outcome. But at least he learns from those failures. You can learn a lot more from your failures than you do your successes in this life. But you have to be in a position to fail. When you're down 20 points in the fourth quarter, there's no clutch. There's no high stakes feeling. You're waiting for the clock to hit 0 so you can go home. This series will likely end in Memphis going on a vacation sooner rather than later. But if they can play the way that they did in the third quarter, if they can get Jaren going on the perimeter, if they can make passes out of defensive collapses, if they can defend and keep SGA at bay and close out on shooters and feed off of the energy of what hopefully will be a good game 3 crowd, be in the game in the clutch and let the ball bounce and see where it goes. Thanks for being with me on this episode of Locked On Grizzlies. Hope you've enjoyed yourself. I certainly have. Make sure you're liking, commenting, rating, reviewing, subscribing, wherever you get your podcasts. We're proud members of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team each and every single day. Again, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube, Google. It's all good. And friendly reminder that the Grizzlies are currently in the playoffs, maybe not for much longer. Locked On Grizzlies has you covered every step of the way. Subscribe to the Locked On Grizzlies podcast newsletter for expert analysis, insider insights, and all of the playoff action delivered straight to your inbox for free. Plus, as a subscriber, you'll be entered to win one of these 3 amazing prizes: $2,500 Best Buy gift card, upgrading your sports cave setup, $300 Game Time gift card, and a $200 Fanatics gift card. It's easy and free to enter. Simply subscribe between April 7th, 2025, which is obviously right now, and April 30th, next week, to be automatically entered to win. Don't miss a moment of this playoff run that may or may not end in the next several days. Join the Locked On Grizzlies newsletter today and experience the playoffs like never before. Subscribe today and enter to win by clicking on the link in the description. Tomorrow, DeMichael Cole will be back with us. Tomorrow, we will preview Grizzlies Thunder Game 3, talking about keys to the contest, ways Memphis can make it a competitive series. We'll dive deeper into those ideas. We'll talk with DeMichael about his experience in Oklahoma City and so much more. Make sure you're with us for our Thursday edition of Locked On Grizzlies. Thanks for being with me for this Wednesday edition of the show. Make sure you're liking, commenting, rating, reviewing, subscribing. Make sure you're going to LockedOnDaily.com, getting in on the Grizzlies newsletter, and most importantly, make sure you're back with us tomorrow. See ya.